You left without revenge, and that changed everything. Most people expect a reaction when they hurt someone, because that is how behavior usually works. Actions create responses, and responses create closure. When someone disrespects you, ignores you, or crosses a line, they are already preparing for what comes next. They expect anger, confrontation, or some form of retaliation because it confirms that what they did had an effect. It gives them something to understand, something to respond to, and something to measure. But when you leave without revenge, something unusual happens. You remove the outcome they were expecting. There is no argument, no emotional reaction, and no moment they can hold on to justify what happened. And because of that, the situation does not feel finished to them. It feels open, unresolved, and incomplete in a way they cannot easily process. People are used to closure being loud, direct, and emotional, but silence creates a completely different kind of impact. It removes predictability, it removes control, and it removes the structure people rely on to understand situations. When that structure disappears, the mind does not relax, it starts searching. They begin replaying what happened, not because you reacted, but because you did not. They go over details they ignored before, small moments that did not seem important at the time. And they try to piece together meaning from something that was never clearly explained. This is where silence becomes powerful, not because it is loud, but because it creates space. And space forces reflection in a way that reactions never do. When there is no confrontation, there is nothing to defend against. And when there is nothing to defend against, the focus turns inward. Instead of reacting to you, they begin reacting to their own thoughts. This shift is important because most people are comfortable reacting, but they are not comfortable reflecting. Reflection requires honesty, and honesty becomes harder to avoid when there is no distraction. If you had reacted emotionally, they could label it, dismiss it, or justify their behavior against it. They could turn the situation into something simple, something they could control. But silence gives them nothing to control. There is no clear narrative, no argument to win, and no moment they can use to feel justified. Instead, everything becomes uncertain, and uncertainty creates tension. The mind does not like unfinished situations. It constantly tries to resolve them, to create a clear ending, to understand what happened and why. But when you leave without revenge, there is no clear ending. There is only absence, and absence cannot be argued with. It cannot be rewritten, it cannot be controlled, and it cannot be easily ignored. Over time, that absence becomes more noticeable than any reaction ever could. They begin to feel the gap you left behind, not just physically, but mentally. Because presence can be taken for granted, but absence creates awareness. It forces attention in a way that constant presence never does. They begin asking questions they did not expect to ask. Why did you not react? Why did you not respond? Why did you not stay? Why did you not fight for it? And those questions do not have clear answers. They stay in the mind, repeating, building, and creating a sense of discomfort that does not easily go away. This is where the dynamic begins to change. Instead of you reacting to them, they begin reacting to the memory of you. They replay conversations, they rethink situations, and they analyze things they once ignored. And because these thoughts come from within, they feel more real, more personal, and more difficult to dismiss. This is the part most people do not expect. They assume that no reaction means no impact, but in reality, it creates a different kind of impact. A quieter one, but one that lasts longer. Because emotional reactions are temporary, they happen in the moment and then fade. But unanswered questions do not fade in the same way. They stay active because the mind keeps trying to complete them. Over time, they begin to realize something that was not obvious before. That your silence was not weakness, it was control. That your lack of reaction was not avoidance, it was a decision. And that decision changes how they see you. Because most people expect attachment to show through reaction. They expect anger to prove that something mattered. But when there is no reaction, it creates a different message. It suggests detachment, it suggests restraint, and it suggests that the situation was not worth the energy. And that is what makes it powerful. Not the silence itself, but what the silence represents. It represents the ability to walk away without needing validation. It represents control over emotion instead of being controlled by it. And most people are not used to seeing that, because most behavior is reactive, not intentional. Most people respond based on emotion, not on choice. So when you respond with nothing, it stands out. It creates contrast, and contrast is what draws attention. They begin to notice your absence more than they noticed your presence, because presence is easy to ignore, but absence is difficult to understand. It creates a gap that cannot be filled easily. And the longer that gap exists, the more it grows in significance. This is why silence often feels louder over time. Not in the moment, but after. Because in the moment it feels like nothing happened. But over time, it becomes something they cannot fully explain. They start to realize that you did not give them the reaction they expected. And because of that, they lost the ability to control how the situation played out. They cannot point to a moment and say that was the reason everything changed. They are left with something incomplete. And incomplete situations stay in the mind longer than complete ones, because the brain keeps returning to them, trying to find closure that does not exist. Eventually, this leads to a deeper realization that the power in the situation did not come from reacting, it came from not reacting. Because reacting would have placed you inside the situation, but leaving without revenge placed you outside of it. And being outside of it changes everything. It removes you from the cycle. It removes you from the pattern, and it removes you from the expectations they had. And once you are no longer part of that pattern, they are left dealing with it alone. That is when the weight of their actions becomes clearer. Not because you forced them to see it, but because there is nothing left distracting them from it. This is why silence is often misunderstood. It looks like nothing on the surface, but it creates something deeper underneath. It shifts attention, it changes perspective, and it removes control. And when control is removed, people are forced to think differently. They are forced to process things in a way they are not used to. And that is where the real impact happens. Not in the moment you left, but in everything that happens after. Because leaving without revenge does not just end the situation, it changes how it is remembered. It turns it into something unfinished, something that lingers, something that stays in the background long after everything else has moved on. And in the end, what you did was not just walk away, you changed the entire structure of the situation. You removed the reaction, you removed the closure, and you removed the outcome they were expecting. And because of that, the impact does not stay with you, it stays with them.